BITCO, in proud partnership with the Petroleum Alliance of Oklahoma, brings you the Petroleum Alliance of Oklahoma Safety Group Dividend Plan. With a track record proven over a century and dedication to the oil patch for more than 75 years, BITCO meets the insurance and risk management needs of industries that are the backbone of the American economy. The Petroleum Alliance of Oklahoma brings added value to your association membership by partnering with BITCO. Working with OIPA dating back to 2003, BITCO provides specialized underwriting, risk control, and claims expertise that has helped generate premium dividends in excess of $10 million. What does the dividend program mean to you? A reduction in the ultimate cost of your insurance protection and a reward for providing your employees with a safe work environment. As a member of the Old Republic Insurance Group, one of the 50 largest shareholder-owned insurance organizations in the United States, BITCO provides the peace of mind that comes from being insured by a Fortune 500 company rated A+ by AM Best. BITCO and the Petroleum Alliance of Oklahoma. We're here for you. Follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn and go to bitco.com today to learn more about our programs, our services, and to find an agent near you.
Right, Mr. Chairman. You want to
that's great. That was good. This is as part of our efforts here at Petroleum Alliance. We continue to try to bring to our constituents, critical business information like this particular program. This is one of our most successful Alliance Partner Program members with this joint venture with BITCO insurance companies. As you heard from the little commercial, now has returned over $10 million to Alliance members since the program's inception. This is a very good success story. Right now, we're gonna focus this particular morning fuel on DOT scoring and how it can impact your company. And I'm going to start off and let them run with it and introduce underwriting manager Crystal Locks. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And thank you all for joining us today. Shortly, you guys will find out, and we'll be discussing some of your company's largest assets and potentially your company's largest liability. As you just saw in the video, as well as what Mr. Chairman just stated, BITCO has partnered with the Petroleum Alliance since 2003 and assists with helping the members to safely operate their business. BITCO offers several fleet safety training courses as a free service. Today, you'll see a small piece of what BITCO can offer to help run your business effectively and efficiently safe. Your speaker today is Cricket McWilliams. He's a BITCO risk control fleet specialist that has been with BITCO for over 6 years. Previous to BITCO, Cricket was a safety director for a large transportation company with over 1,000 CDL drivers. Now I'm going to turn over to Cricket so you can learn what today's Zoom call is all about. Cricket?
Good morning, everybody. I just want to thank the chairman and Crystal for asking me to do this today. Not only in my background was I a safety director, but I was born and raised in Hobbs, New Mexico, which we all know is an oil field town. All my family's been in the oil field business all of our lives. So just to kind of quickly get into it, in thinking about DOT and how it affects oil field companies, I'm just going to run a couple of statistics by you. The biggest thing that we're facing these days in DOT compliance is how it's used against companies when you have that accident and lawsuits. And there's a new term out there you might have heard of. It's called nuclear judgments. These are when you have that big accident and they're in the millions of dollars, the settlements. So I ran across this the other day. In 2016, there were a total of 4 nuclear judgments. That's judgments over $1 million. From 2016 to 19, there was a total of 256 judgments of over $1 million. Okay, so that's where things have started to go, because lawyers have figured out they can sue and get money. Lawyers now buy more highway advertisement signs than any other business segment in the country that buys those highway signs. There's nothing more. The other thing, to bring this down to personally, I had a really good friend that was a manager in a trucking company. Because of the accidents they had in the judgments that they had against them, they had to shut the company down because they shopped their auto insurance around, and to pay the premium that was being asked for them to pay, that company would not be profitable. And like that just sink in, that because they could not afford the auto insurance for a very large company, and it's hitting everybody. This happened to a fleet of about 5,000 CDL trucks where they had to shut that down. So just to kind of go into scores, is they're affecting you. One of the things I want you to, if you do not know what the term negligent entrustment is, you might want to look that up. That's your homework for today, and try to understand what that does, because I don't really have a lot of time. But what I want to just do is show you a couple things. You should have, this is the DOT portal. Is that on the screen, Crystal? Just want to check.
Not yet, Cricket.
No.
It's not on the screen. Okay, let me try this one more time. I'm sharing my screen. Tell me when it comes up. Does it come up yet?
Not yet.
Huh, hold on. Share content, share screen, start broadcast. Sorry, first time doing this on an iPad. All right,
There you
how
go.
about now?
Got it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so everybody talks about DOT scores, and not only do DOT look at your scores, or lawyers look at your scores on the accidents, insurance companies are now looking at your scores and what you have. And also, this came to me from a company from a pretty large oil field company in Oklahoma, is a lot of our oil field contractors who try to get work with some of the major oil field companies. Those major oil field companies are now looking at your DOT scores seeing if they're going to approve you to be on a vendor list. But in looking at, and just kind of under this safety management program, is DOT scores. You don't have one, you have a bunch. You have the unsafe driving. This is under your basic. A lot of people do not know what the inspection selection system score that came up with. That's how DPS officers, when you go through a weight station, decide, or help them decide, who to give an inspection to. And you have to look at these. Now, if you don't know what the FMCSA portal is you're able to sign up for this website if you have a DOT number. I will tell you, if you never signed up for it, you're going to need your DOT PIN to sign up for this. But you should look for this, because I want to get to one little thing over here, which is the safer part. But this is private. This DOT portal, nobody else can see these scores. Now, you may have seen the safer system where that's public, but it takes out a lot of information. But when I go to help clients, I'll go and look at these scores, and I'll look these up. And like over in the safer scores, some things you'll see in this category is you'll see things like violations of a driver having a suspended driver's license for a non-safety related reason. You know what that is? That's a driver having a suspended license because he didn't pay child support. And yeah, you got the violation, but just think about what that can do to a company if that driver's in an accident and it's even not his fault. Well, if he's not his fault because his license was suspended, or in this category where they don't have a medical card, you see those a lot of times, the liability of those accidents can switch or go to zero, even if your driver's completely not at fault. And I'm talking running red stop signs. I'm talking a lot of other things. Another thing that you want to look for in the portal in looking up your violations is in this category, unsafe driving. Okay. In this category, there's going to be things like no seat belts. There's also going to be things like drivers driving over the speed limit. And I can't tell you how many times I have gone and I pulled this up for the company that I'm helping, and I go, you got two guys here that have 3 speeding tickets or have 1 speeding ticket. And did you know he got that speeding ticket? Well, heck no, they didn't know, because the guy didn't want it. I mean, would you want your company know you got a speeding ticket in their company vehicle? They went and paid it and hope to goodness you didn't find out. So it is imperative that you know what violations that you have and how you're dealing with them. Is there any corrective action in it? Another thing that we see with oil field companies and that have DOT trucks is maybe that driver did get in an accident. Well, I can show you a lot of case studies where the plaintiff's lawyer go in and they go, "What'd you do to that guy? Okay, he got in an at-fault accident. Did you just throw him the keys to another truck? Or did you require them to do defensive driving training, a certified defensive driving training?" It's nothing different than if we take OSHA rules and regulation. OSHA tells us that if we have a near miss or an accident, what do we do with that worker? We retrain him. Well, the same thing happens when you have that at-fault accident, is you need to retrain that driver. Some of the other things that we look for in this is crash indicators. One of the biggest things that will get you an audit from DOT quicker than anything else is there's a thing called your accident frequency rate. It tells by how many trucks you have and how many miles that are driven and some other things in there that they get a average. And if you're over that, you have the possibility of getting an audit. But also, everything in this will and can be used against you in large accidents where we get those lawyers involved. Driver fitness, hours of service is a big thing. One of my biggest, when I was safety director, one of my largest settlements was because my driver was driving down the road and somebody went into his lane, head-on collision, but my driver was over his hours of service by 30 minutes. It was clear the accident was clearly not his fault, but because my driver was over his hours of service, the lawyer argued and won that our driver wasn't supposed to be there. And so we lost liability, and they came back and sued us, and they got a judgment. So just to kind of put a little twist on that is how important these violations and your control of these violations can be. DOT is it's a big subject matter. They have experts. There's a lot of things that you need to find out if you've not signed up for the portal, if you're not looking at your violations on a monthly basis and matching them up. By rule, a DOT or CMV driver, if he gets a violation, has to turn that in to the company within, I think it's 10 to 15 days. But a lot of times they won't. And you're sitting there going down the road, and you're, that one driver that got two speeding violations and you didn't know about it, got in a big accident, and here comes the deposition, and the lawyers going, you're a bad company because you let this guy drive and he had 2 speeding tickets and you didn't even know about it. That's part of proving negligent entrustment. That's kind of a real condensed version. That's kind of, I think that's my time, correct? Or do I have a little bit more time?
Hey, Cricket, we're going to probably work a few questions too.
Yes. Okay. So if there's any questions, I'm willing to answer as much as I can.
Well, we have one question from the chat line of a gentleman that uses, Steve uses this, he evaluates contractors several times a week. He's asking kind of a general question about understanding the stats and the measurement, like what's a good score, what's not a good score. Maybe that screen you had up that had the that framework of the scoring, maybe you can talk to those categories real quickly.
So there's 7. When you get a violation, those violations have points, and those violations goes to can fall in any two of the 7 categories there: the driver fitness, or or hours of service. It's hard to determine what's a good score. Some people see it, there's called a threshold, that if you get too many points in one category, you can go over that threshold. That threshold can, it basically puts you at jeopardy of getting an audit. Now, how audits are selected or a different thing. What I would look at if I was in his shoes is I would definitely look at, you know, the unsafe driving, hours of service, those type of scores. In the oil field, we're hard on our trucks. You know, our trucks, we run on dirt roads. We're not over the road truckers where we're driving on pavement all the time. And unfortunately, FMCSA is kind of set up for long haul trucking. And so it's kind of hard to gauge what that is. You know, when I go look at a company, I look at the trucks, you know, are the trucks clean, or decently clean? And, you know, how many scores do they have? Do they have one ticket in 1 year and that's it for the last couple of years? One thing about violations is violations stay on a DOT record 24 months. But that's really a hard, this is a good score, this is a bad score. It just kind of depends.
That segues into a couple of questions, Cricket. One is, when you do have a score that's teetering on being too high, you mentioned briefly defensive driving training. And are there other mitigants that within that 24-month time frame that you can lower your score by doing some of these taskings?
Well, there's a couple of things that happen and that I see with oil field companies. Number one, DOT rules, there's interstate if you go outside of state lines, and there's intrastate. Okay, one of the things that you have to do with FMCSA, if you're an interstate carrier, it's a form called the FMS 150. And what that does is where you send in the number of trucks and the number of mileage. I can't tell you how many times that I've seen a company that if they're intrastate, you don't have to update that, but you want to. That, you know, 5 years ago, they had 10 trucks. Well, now they got 30 and a lot more miles. Well, that MCS 150, through the mathematical equations or algorithms, tell you or set how you go over those thresholds. Does that make sense? So I've seen trucks, again, I've seen them that had 10 trucks. Now 3 years later, they've got 20. They've never updated their MCS 150 in 5 years. Well, if they can just update that, I've seen that lower scores by itself, especially the mileage of that. I've seen MCS 150s that were recently updated, and they got 100 trucks, but they are saying that the mileage has 10,000 miles. Well, what they did was they said my trucks have 10,000 miles a year. No, that's wrong. It's how many mileage total for all of the trucks.
So I just want to make sure I understand that. So let's say you were the 10 truck guy, and you had certain frequency of scoring, but it looks excessive until you change that 150 report, and you have 30 trucks, then it looks like a much smaller number, much lower frequency of occurrence. Is that
correct? Yeah, that's one way. The other way is getting some clean inspections. One of the things that I always tell people to do is I gave a reward for any driver that got a clean inspection. And just like my granddad said, a little bit of honey goes a long way. I gave my drivers a $50 gift card to Walmart. And out of my Carrollton location, when we started that, I had 120 trucks, and we never got clean inspections. And I was given this suggestion, and I got the first one, and I brought that driver in front of a safety meeting, said, thank you, here's your $50 gift card to Walmart. And after 6 months, what we saw was remarkable. Number one, we got more clean inspections because the driver, when he's dealing with DOT officers, you know, a lot of times these drivers, when they get pulled over, they're mad because they got to stop their day. All right. Well, then they make the DOT officer mad. Well, now they're treating him a lot nicer. So we're getting clean scores. The other remarkable thing that we found is out of that Carrollton location, our maintenance cost per month for trucks was $300,000 a month. Because of that, our cost of maintenance went down to about $100,000 a month. You know why? Because now the drivers were doing great pre and post trips and getting those small little issues to our mechanics quicker, and we were getting them fixed instead of waiting and waiting and waiting, and then they become a big issue. And now we've got, instead of getting that leaky axle fixed when they first saw it, well, now they let it go and the axle burn up. We got a $10,000 fix.
I want to ask a corollary question to what we just talked about a minute ago, because it's no secret that the oil patch fell on some hard times. So the question of going from 10 trucks to 30, I want to talk about when you have 30 and you have a certain frequency and you're okay. When let's say you update your 150 and you move down to 10, does that frequency follow you, or do they reset it, or what? Because that's more likely the case in the last.
I think it can reset, but that's not changing the number of trucks is not going to move that bar too much. It can move it a little bit, but the biggest thing is getting clean inspections.
But what if you had, we probably have some folks that had 100 trucks with a certain amount mileage, and now they have 20 that they can keep busy, and they're not willing to step out there too far because they survived a downturn here. And so that they're going to want to understand that if they go out and update their 150, are they going to put themselves in some sort of bind?
No, not that much. I only did that, and to kind of give an example, when we had a lot of box trucks that weren't CDL. See, a lot of people in their MCS 150, they think CDL trucks. There's a difference between commercial motor vehicles and CDL trucks. They're both commercial. One starts at 10,001 pound. The CDL truck starts at 26. Well, we had just as many box trucks that were not CDL trucks, but were still CMVs. So when we changed that, we went from, on our MCS 150, we went from 500 CDL trucks to now 1,000 CMV trucks that all counted. So that's how that helped us, but a little bit maybe. But the main thing is getting clean inspections. Another way that we kind of did this, and DOT officers, in my experience, they talk to each other, and they stay in an area. In most oil field companies, we stay in an area. We're not driving from here to Utah. Is we would take a truck that needed to have its preventative maintenance, and I'd grab my mechanic, and I would tell that mechanic to go through that truck and clean it up. And any diesel mechanic worth his salt should be able to make that truck pass a level 1 clean inspection. And so then what I would do is I would ask a local DOT officer to come down and give that truck an inspection. Now, what you get is what you get, but they know what's happening. And so they can get that clean, and if they give you that clean inspection, that helps. But the main thing is if you're having violations, is why. Get to the root cause. Why are you having those violations? Is it maintenance? Is it other issues? And try to preempt those. One of the things I used to do in going with a little bit of honey is my business cards were either Hunter Green or Hunter Orange. And I would get to the depots before the truckers left. And I would put my business card on some place that they were supposed to do a proper pre-trip. And on the back of that card that said, if you find this card by a date, you bring it to me, you get a reward, which was the same day. So if they brought it to me, they did a proper pre-trip. If they didn't bring it to me that day, I just figured out that my drivers weren't doing good pre and post trips. That's something that maybe somebody in the audience may use. So
one other question, I don't want to dominate any other people, but are there pieces of software? Are there good software as a solution, SaaS options to help monitor, manage this type of information? or other than just maybe they work as a template or a dashboard for this
Yes.
FMCSA portal?
There's other information. If you're talking about just the portal, getting that information off the portal, we use because you can't. A portal has a login to that carrier. There's a thing called the cab report that usually most insurance companies are using nowadays. BITCO's using it. That can give you your thresholds in that in your scores, like your ISS scores. That's the cab report. Now, if you're talking about there are a bunch of companies that keep like your DQ files up to date, your maintenance files, and they keep you compliant. But on that end, but not really on the roadside violations end. That's your maintenance department, if that's what you're trying to asking.
I'm just looking for tools for our, for our Alliance members that they could possibly lay their hands on that would help them with this.
Yeah. Well, first thing is the portal is free. The portal, everybody has a DOT number, can get in the portal, and that's free. And it takes 15 minutes to check that, maybe once a month or however you think you need. As far as keeping up with the DQ files and everything, the driver qualification files, I could say DQ because that's what we call it all the time. Keeping those records up to date. In the maintenance records, JJ Keller, Foley has some that are really good. Those will keep those records in the background that has to do with the background check and the new clearinghouse, and that's away from scores. But those are really good to use, I found. If you don't keep them yourself. One of the things that BITCO does with our customers that have DOT numbers, we actually go in and teach you how to maintain the driver qualification files and maintenance files. It's actually real easy. It's just putting the processes in place and setting some time.
Hey, Cricket, we got a question from Tim Martin. Ask Cricket what he thinks about the importance of clean dashboards.
Yes. So one of the things, the clean dashboard is one of the things is when a driver's coming into a wait station, and these are the big wait stations, like at state lines, where a lot of times DOT, they're looking at the cab of the truck, and they're looking as that truck is coming up, and they're trying to decide if they want to give this truck an inspection or not. That ISS score, that inspection selection system that I saw you, maybe you got a high one that says to inspect, or a conditional rating, where it's up to the officer. Well, the officer knows that if your dashboards has a lot of gunk on it, or papers and stuff, or the inside of the truck isn't clean, well, you're probably not maintaining that truck very well. So they can go get some violations. So that's one of the things that officers look to when they're trying to decide on who to give an inspection or not. Also, cleaner trucks. Now, we're oil filled. I'm not talking about dirt. I'm talking just really, really bad. It's, you haven't cleaned that truck in 6 months, and you can tell it. Officers look for that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I got another question from Steve Freemeyer. Please ask Cricket to provide an overview on drug and alcohol reports and understanding the process.
That takes that would take a long time. If you're looking, there's a ton of stuff there. There's 5 or 6 different times that you have to give a CDL driver a drug test. You need to know when to give a driver a drug test and when not to. My company actually we accidentally gave a CDL driver, a DOT drug test when we weren't supposed to. Now, you have to understand what happens with a CDL drug test. If the driver tests positive, there's things that happen afterwards. He loses his license. He's got to go through drug rehab and all this other stuff, that where if you were a worker in the field, you can just let that person go. That person, because we weren't supposed to give him a drug test, turned around and sued us. And I think the settlement was $150,000. because he lost his CDL license when we wasn't supposed to legally. But to give an overview of drug testing, I have a 2-hour class for that.
So Cricket, could you just tell us the resource and could you make that information available so we could share it, the resource to learn more about that, to answer?
Drug testing?
Yeah, just drug and alcohol policies and how they affect DOT scores.
So drug and alcohol policy, how they can affect DOT scores is, number one, in an audit. Okay, they're going to come in and audit your records to see if you're doing the random and those type of things. If you're not doing drug testing or randoms, that would count against you in an audit, which when you do an on-site DOT audit, you get 3 outcomes. One is satisfactory, one is conditional, where they still let you run, but you have things you need to fix, and unsatisfactory. And along with those violations come fines. That can affect you. Also, if you have a driver that tests positive in an accident, that's going to be held against you in the lawsuit. There's a lot of training out there. JJ Keller has training over drug testing that you can do online. I know. Like I said, I do a lot of training with my customers to have you understand that, and there's in the ins and outs of drug testing, but that's a pretty big topic.
So Cricket, it's something that you guys offer as a provider, an insurance provider, to obviously that to hold down claims and what have you, especially legal claims. So you have that service in turn.
Yes, sir.
That's good to know.
Yes, we do for our clients. There's 3 classes that I develop, because with BITCO's customers, we typically, like a lot of oil field companies, your roustabouts and your construction and those type of companies, where we're not long haul trucking. Okay, those guys just have trucks. Where a lot of our oil field companies, they have people working in the field, and then they might have 6 or 7 trucks. Where trucking is DOT compliance is not the main worry of the business. And so that's what I kind of developed, is from that aspect, is how to maintain those type of things.
So does BITCO offer certain programs or certain discounts if you complete first question, part of the question is if you complete these series of classes, and B, if you have, as you develop no incident time under your belt, does that translate into additional savings at BITCO?
Well, I think if you get your DOT compliance in order and develop good fleet safety programs, you're going to prevent accidents and or lower some of the payouts if you have an accident. But as far as giving a discount by attending our stuff, that would be a Crystal question. I'm not in that department.
Yeah, so I can help a little bit with that. So with regards to the training, BITCO has a lot of these services they could offer. Cricket actually traveled throughout the whole country to a lot of our customers and provided free training with regards to driver safety training, DOT training. We talk about telematics. We partner with some telematics companies that they can provide discounts as well if you purchase some of their products. Now, just purchasing the products and going to a class or taking a JJ Keller that we might offer, we might have online in 2020, a lot of prohibited travel and everything just to make everybody safe. We've done a lot of these virtual training safety classes. But we can't say that, hey, just because you've taken these classes, just because you've implemented this, you're actually going to be utilizing it. So we need to make sure that you're not only purchasing these products, but you're actually implementing them as well. That will reflect with regards to the claims that you have with the frequency as well as the size. It will help mitigate them. So, and that will reflect in the pricing of, your insurance, wherever it may be. But it's something that, BITCO offers for free to our, that are members of the Petroleum Alliance, as well as BITCO clients, we offer the training stuff for free, which I think Cricket has actually mentioned in some of his trainings that some of these classes could be tens of thousands of dollars depending on your fleet size. But our training not only includes some of the fleet stuff that I mentioned, but also, as Cricket mentioned, some of the drug and safety stuff, toolbox safety talks. It's got a lot of different topics that we offer online for our customers. And a lot of it just depends on what particular focus that you're looking at to cover whatever topic you want. So to kind of answer your question, if we don't give a discount per se at the very beginning, but it will reflect the safety that the mentality that your company offers to your employees, and that is reflected in any carrier's pricing of your insurance coverage.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention as we finish up, in the DOT compliance, and I tell all my oil field companies this, and I've seen this across the board, is oil field, we spend a lot of money on training. We spend a lot of money on competent person training, H2S, and for our contractors that have to be members of IS Networld and all those things. And one of the things that I don't think we get enough or understand is that transportation is every company's biggest hazard. Okay, it has the most claims, it has the most fatalities of anything you got. But when I look at oil field companies and companies in general, if we put a dollar amount of how much do we spend in fleet versus how much we spend in worker safety training, it's 100 to 1 to worker safety training. We do not put enough money and time and effort and attention to fleet training and also in that staying DOT compliant and working in those areas.
This has been great, guys. I think it really will help some of our folks. I think we probably need to go ahead and start wrapping up. But I want you guys to know that we're very proud of our partnership with BITCO. It's a long duration. It has paid dividends to our folks, and we certainly appreciate you guys jumping on the morning fuel and passing on this type of information, because it's critical. Brooke, do you have anything to add?
Yes, sir. I'd just like to say that the Petroleum Alliance is going to be working through the Oklahoma Energy Education Foundation. We'll be leaning into more training seminars as we get into 2021 and we start thinking about oil field activity ramping up a bit. So stay tuned on that. We'll be visiting with our Health Safety Committee to make certain that we have some good programs. We'll be following up with Cricket. And also we have some great programs coming up, Mr. Chairman. Cody, do you mind throwing up the slide? Great. So our next morning fuel is going to be next Wednesday, March 10th, with the law firm of Baltimore Slow to discuss contract modifications in Indian country. Folks, this is an important one for you to pay attention to. Make certain that your legal teams are aware of it, and we'll get some good information from these folks who are Indian law and energy experts. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Outstanding. Thank you guys. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, Cricket.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Look forward to seeing everyone soon.